Okay, I think I should be live. Yeah. So I hope I'm audible, right?
Yep.
Okay. So welcome to Naukri Learning's live session today, and thank you whoever has joined. And our topic of discussion is going to be how to prepare for your first sales interview. So a sales interview can indeed be difficult to crack, as you know, one needs to demonstrate persuasive skills by convincing the interviewer that you are right, you're the right fit for the job. After all, persuasion is only what matters in your role. But how would you really crack a sales interview? And to sort of guide you all, we have Vishal and Himadri from Juno School. Vishal is building the talent and employability ecosystem for Juno. He has more than 16 years of experience after his post graduation from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. He made his first sale when he was just in class two. Himadri takes care of curriculum conceptualization, design, and delivery at Juno School, and he has more than 20 years of experience in people development, talent management, HR practices, and process enhancements. Certified trainer from City and Guild UK, and also an awardee of 101 most fabulous global training and development leaders. So we'll also be taking your questions later. So don't forget to put in your questions in the live chat box that is there, and we will try to address them after the presentation. So before we start the presentation, let me just share it with all of you. I hope it's visible. Screen is shared, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Correct. So I think you both can proceed.
Okay, fantastic. First of all, hi, good evening, everyone. Good to have you. We have how many people joined in, Niharika, approximately?
Just a second. Okay, we have two people joining in. I'm actually unable to.
Right?
I'm unable. Okay, yeah, I have two people right now.
Oh, okay, fantastic, cool. No problems. Hi, we'll start with these two people then. Hi and welcome everyone. I think Niharika has already given the introduction. So both Himadri and I, we are part of this new age edtech startup, which is Juno School of Business. And, we really want to start this, the predominantly audience for this entire talk that we're going to have is basically around how for people who are freshers or who are just pass out from a college, how can they basically crack sales interview without having any sales experience. I think that's what we're gonna talk about predominantly. There would be some tools, there would be some tips, there would be some live examples that we're gonna talk about, that how it can equip you to possibly crack this entire journey and how we can handhold you basically. So hopefully this half an hour, 45 minutes should help you, in a certain engaging way. And of course, there will be some questions and answers with both Himadri and I would be able to answer. Yeah. Next slide, please. Great. There's also a very, very big surprise for all of you. And the surprises if anybody and everybody who's going to stay till the end of this webinar, we would be having a certificate. And there is another big surprise, which, we intend to share it with you after the webinar gets over, basically. So you need to wait till the end of the webinar. And I think hopefully there should be some goodie that you all should like would be presented. Next slide, please. Who we are, as I indicated before, we are an online school and we teach sales techniques, processes, tools to students like you or to entry-level professionals in a more experiential manner, which is there are more live case studies, there are more live examples of what's happening in the real world. There are more scenarios that you would be put in. There is a lot of CRM training. There's a lot of training which is what one would be doing in the real life scenario is what we actually talk about. So Juno School is, the founder is Tarun Matta. He's a very, very famous person in the field of employability, talent, learning and development for that matter. He started a website known as imjobs.com and Hiris, and this is another venture that he has recently started. And Naukri has also invested in our company, basically. So the interesting thing about the whole program is how this is linked to employability. So we are just not talking about the theory part of sales. It is, we are also linking to the placement part or the employability part too. And I think that's the most beautiful aspect of our entire program in an experiential way, which also Himadri looks after. Next slide, please. Great. I think we'll take a pause over here for some time on the 4P formula. What exactly is this, and how should we start the journey of interviews, basically? I think we all know what are job interviews, or possibly this is the first time or second time that if somebody is trying to give or go for an interview. To give you a perspective, interview is a process in which you are asked questions about your life if you're a fresher, about, let's say, the graduation course or the master's course that you have pursued, which is your education, about the skills, about your hobbies, about the kind of person you are, about the family background that you have, what kind of volunteering that you have done, basically what kind of extracurriculars that one has pursued. So it's all about your education, about the life, about your skills, strengths, etc. That typically this interview or question and answer session is all about. Now, why there are too many sessions? Why possibly we are doing a webinar? The background is job interviews typically or inherently by nature are very, very risky. They're even hard, even for experts, that even after 10, 15, or even 18, 20 years of experience, there are a lot of people who actually get butterflies in the tummy. And specifically because it is linked to the job that you have been doing, it is linked to the position that you want to work. So obviously there's a lot of risk factor which comes in. What if I don't get through? There is also a lot of factors about what questions would be asked. Your mind is lost in multiple aspects in terms of any questions can come, whether it's about your skills, whether do I have those skills or not, what is the interviewer or the company looking at, what should I wear basically in the interview, how should I behave, is it right or is it wrong? I think there are some hundreds and hundreds of questions, and I clearly remember even when I gave my first or second, possibly or rather, a lot of interviews that I gave when I was a graduate or even after post graduation. I think I took a good time in terms of preparing, and I think those experiences plus working in the HR fraternity for last 16 years with me and with Himadri for around 20 years, and the experience that we have had of dealing with around thousands and thousands of candidates and learners like you is what we would be talking about in this interview session. And for that interview session, we would be talking about 4P, which it's a short and sweet methodology that you would learn. So we want to give this as a takeaway in short to everyone so that you keep it in your side pocket or you learn it immediately, which are 4 simple things that we're going to talk about. So when you are preparing, what we didn't have, when I say we, I'm talking about Himadri and me. At that time, there were not so many webinars or, learning. We are slightly old, if I may possibly take that luxury. We didn't have those kind of luxuries in terms of, somebody talking a webinar and possibly sharing the answers or the queries or the butterflies in the stomach that we had. We had to live with it. So hence we thought it's very, very imperative that what we didn't get, you people should actually get it. So it's more of, learning, sharing that we would be possibly doing over here. So yeah, what exactly is this 4P? I think there's a lot of hype and hoopla that we have created. Next slide, please. We'll talk about. So these are 4 simple words. What is 4P formula to crack your first sales interview? Prepare, practice, present, participate. I repeat, and maybe if you guys want to note, it's prepare, practice, present, participate. We would be spending good 15 to 20 minutes in dealing in detail with all those parameters now. What exactly is it? What is the kind of checklist also for all these 4 parameters? There are 3 to 5 pointers that you should keep in mind. And I'm not too sure if Naukri would be more than happy also to share this presentation with people who would want it also. So it can be like a ready place or a ready document for you, like a notepad wherein you can just refer or recommend whenever you feel like. So yeah, we'll go into the first point, which is prepare, which is, next slide, please. Guys, in simple words, is study. and I cannot harp much that irrespective of I possibly attended somewhere around, let's say, 100 interviews in my life, and I would have possibly taken some thousands and thousands of interviews. I cannot talk less, or I cannot talk, or rather I can't talk about that how important is this factor, which is preparation with after 20, 25 or 15 years, or after hundreds and thousands of interview. What exactly is preparation? It is just about being ready for the interview and just thinking and asking questions to yourself that what would be the questions which would be basically coming, what things I should look at, which would basically help me to unguard myself, or rather when I go for interview, I shouldn't be asked something that I don't know about. It is just prepared the way you basically go and give exams. And if you've already prepared well before, it makes life easier. I think in the similar fashion, we are also talking about that when you go for interview, prepare a bit before. And what are those pointers that you should possibly look at? We would have a look at the next slide. I think the very first thing that we should look at when we are preparing is the company research, which is for what company that you're applying. You typically get a job description from this company, or if, or let's say on a telephonic conversation, if you are having a call, that what kind of role is it and what kind of company is it. The first and foremost thing, you should go to the website, spend at least 1 hour to 2 hours on the company website. Number two, look at the social media pages. I do not need to say that the Gen Z or the Gen Y generation, which possibly might be here, how much of Insta, how much of FB, if you people are still using, or LinkedIn or Twitter, that you need to look at while doing the research. Why I'm talking about you should look at the social media pages, it would basically give you a very good insight on what are the new products that company is doing. What is the culture or ethos of that company? Who are the people that company is hiring? What is that company thinking about with, let's say, the Ukraine war or the Russia war, which is possibly happening? These are conversation starters. This is also laying a lot of emphasis on how much you want to get the job if you know about the company that you're going to interview for. So website, social media pages. Number three is the employee reviews. There's a very famous, there are actually a couple of websites like Glassdoor and Ambition Box, which, personally, I would want to recommend that people should look at. Again, to get a very, very insider view in terms of what's happening in that particular company. Are they giving, for example, typically for sales, because this interview or this conversation is more about a first sales interview, sales and incentives are very much related. So is that company paying incentives of time? Or is that company culture really good? How is the CEO of that company? What are the typical questions that company ask? Both Ambition Box and Glassdoor, they actually talk about it. And again, it's a part of the preparedness. You will be more equipped when you're going to go for this war, which is known as interview. Number four, the management team or the people behind it. Who are the folks who have actually nurture this company? Who are the people who are behind this company are very, very important. And there's a very good possibility this can be one of the interview questions which can actually come, that who do you think is a co-founder? Who do you think is a founder? You should even go to the founder's profile or the co-founder's profile and check what is their thought process, what is that they are thinking in terms of 3 years or 5 years down the line, which can again make your conversation or interview conversation extremely meaty. The funding news, it's more to do with the financial health that you should possibly check. If you intend to spend your career in a certain company, it's extremely imperative or very, very important that, what's the financial health of that company. You look at the funding news specifically because, there are thousands and lakhs of people who are part of the startup ecosystem also. We're also part of the startup ecosystem. So it would just give you a good insight again in terms of what might be the financial health of the company in a short way. Latest news I've already covered, and I think maybe you should check Economic Times or a couple of other newspapers, basically, that what this company is trying to do in terms of launches, maybe in terms of the funding, maybe possibly if they are changing their branding, etc. All this is part of latest news, which again, you should know about when you're applying for any role or any company that they're looking at. What is the USP of the company? What are the competitors? So look at 3-4 competitors basically just to understand that how's the company that you are applying for is extremely different. And I would also try to connect in certain questions which are typically asked in the interview, wherein why you should apply for this company. And this is one of the topmost questions which is typically asked to a fresher, that why should you apply this company? Why have you applied in Google? Why have you applied in Amazon? Why have you applied in Flipkart, for example? So if you know the USP of the company, and if you've done a little bit of computer analysis, this important question can be very easily answered. This would easily help you out, that because Google is the biggest search engine, and that's the one of the biggest USPs that we have found out as compared to other search engines which are available. Let's say if you've applied in Google, and if you've done the analysis that Google, for example, holds 90-95% of, let's say, ad revenue, or let's say 70% of the searches which are happening globally, for example, which basically means you know what is one of the important things that Google has, not just because it's not just about the money that Google pays. It is not just about the facilities. It's also about what Google as a product, service, and the USP that it is offering that one should know, which these last 2 pointers can help you out. We'll move on to the next slide. Himadri, if you want to add over here by any chance, we'll possibly take a pause, and I'll just request Himadri also if he wants to add to this stage or juncture till now.
I think Vishal, you've summed it up, and it's all there. I think one personal recommendation would be, when we go for an interview, exactly know who the interviewer is, right? So my recommendation to everybody would be just go to their LinkedIn, check the profile, and that probably helps you understand the background that this person comes from. And once you get into a habit of doing it, by looking at the education qualification, the organizations that they have worked for, you tend to get an understanding of this person's mindset. And it gets you more comfortable when you go and interact with that person. So that's one personal recommendation that I would go at.
Thank you, Himadri. That's helpful. Very, very helpful. Thank you. Niharika, next slide, please. Great. Position, review the job description. I think we've already spoken about it. Check profiles of similar designation or roles. So let's say if you're applying for a sales associate or a sales consultant, sales development officer, etc., etc. Look at in similar companies on LinkedIn that what exactly are people doing? What exactly is typical role that these people are up to? What is the qualification of these people? This would give you a lot of comfort in terms of people like you or us, you, me, and I are actually getting through, and what exactly are they doing into day-to-day activities. I think it would also give you a fairly good sense. If possible, try to even talk to your seniors if they have gotten through that company before, because usually, let's say for campuses or otherwise, if same people are or same companies are coming, it's always good to talk to seniors, or otherwise you can even do an outreach to write to a similar designation person who have possibly joined in last 6 months or 1 year back, just asking for help that I have also applied and just want to understand. This is what is written in the job description, what exactly it is into the day-to-day life. Why? Because I want to prepare for my interviews, and I want to be more prepared in terms of answering the question, which is typically asked, that why do you want to do sales, for example, and what would a day look like? Do you even know about it? So I think this would help before only. And as I said, a lot of frequently asked questions for a fresher in sales can be answered in the preparation round only. And I think that's the most important thing both Himadri and I would want to emphasize over here before we leave for this webinar. And what we want to give back is, in the preparation round only, if you have spent that kind of a time, let's say 70-80% of the answers can easily be, or questions can easily be answered in the prep round if you know about these things. Also consider your eligibility, as in, are you eligible or not? Because specifically in India, what we usually see, let's say if there's an X role which is open, there are thousands and thousands of people who would apply without looking at the eligibility, thinking that it's just a job that they want to apply and they like, and they would just send it. I think that's the most important thing, wherein if you do not want to face the rejection for no rhyme and reason, do check the eligibility with Hawkeye, or let's say with lenses, that what is that company is asking for? Do I have that qualification? If you have it, more than happy to apply. But typically we see a lot of junk resumes. People send it after or without seeing a job description or without seeing the qualification. So yeah, I think these are a few pointers on the position, and we covered company. We'll move on to the next slide, please.
Yeah, one thing, Vishal, I would want to add here. So I think what Vishal has spoken about when it comes to the position slide, I think that's a perfect launch pad to take off from there. However, one thing that you would want to do proactively is that, because when you go and appear for an interview, you are applying for a position and getting interviewed, all you're doing is selling yourself. So apart from the eligibility, job description, interacting with people who worked in those organizations earlier, try to see that what are the skill sets that you have which can add value to the position that you're applying for. It could be if you worked somewhere in the past, it could be your prior experience. In case you are a fresher, I'm sure you would have done some academics or as part of your academics in college, or some skills that you possess, which are your strengths. So try to have an answer wrote around the fact that why do you fit that position better, and what are the skill sets that will help add value if you join the organization, right? So that could be one pointer wherein you should prepare as to how you suit the best for this particular position. That's it, Vishal. I wanted to add this point.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Himadri, for another very good, valuable point over here. Yeah, next slide. So self, I think Himadri just covered it, which is, you need to work on yourself a lot, which is your skills and interests, and then match it, which is academics, internships as a fresher. These are the biggest assets that you have as a fresher. And when I say fresher, please understand all of us and everybody who's working in some kind of a job or a position was a fresher at some point of time. So it's not as such that we were born with 18, 20, 15 years of work experience. We earned it. We all have crossed that journey. So all that butterflies in stomach and possibly any other animals in the stomach, we all have gone through basically. And I think the Himadri is already covered with the matchmaking part of the skills, interests, personal characteristics, or let's say the acads, internship, the assets that I'm talking about, extracurriculars, volunteering. Try to match it with the JD. And also your social media profiles, which is extremely important. I call it footsteps, basically. There are a lot of employers, and we are seeing a trend now that a lot of employers, specifically for freshers and even for experienced people, they actually try to check what kind of picture you have on LinkedIn. Is it a professional one? Is it a fairly something, let's say from an FB or Insta one has picked up and just kept it over there? What are your comments and views possibly on FB and Insta? Basically, so try to keep it clean, try to have pretty normal views. When I say normal, neutral views is what I meant, because there are a lot of internet-based companies and a lot of new age companies have added this extra feature or extra step wherein they actually check the social media profiles of the candidates, including freshers who apply for. So yeah, I think that's the stage one of preparation part. And I think that's the stage that we have spent, or we would be spending the most amount of time. As I said, this is 60 to 70% of your answers that you would have in the interview round can be answered while preparing over here. So yeah, let's move on to the next slide. Great. Practice. I think this possibly people who follow cricket, or I'm sure everybody knows Virat Kohli. There's no one of the better persons that at least I know, if you follow cricket or any other profession, that he's one of the best persons to prepare. There's always a fight between skill and what kind of attitude do I have to do well. Not that Virat Kohli was not skilled, but it is also to do with a lot of practice. And you'll see a lot of debates basically between, let's say, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, wherein Rohit Sharma, people say, is very talented, versus Virat Kohli, not that he's less talented, but not as talented in terms of timing as Rohit Sharma. But the fact that he has practiced a lot, and if you look at his averages, which is across, let's say, test matches or one day or possibly T20s, the only person on planet with 50 as average in all these three formats, versus, let's say, a lot of other cricketers or thousands of cricketers who are possibly playing. So this is where the practice come in, and we'll go on to the next slide and why possibly we've taken his focus. So, we have tried to talk in your lingo, and if possibly, if you would have been doing this webinar in a physical way, or possibly we would be around, we would have asked you. So practice is nothing in terms of what you would be speaking and how you would be speaking. there are lots and lots of places where you can access the frequently asked questions for any interview. Now, for those answers can also be prepared. Important thing is, do not memorize and ratify an answer like a parrot in an interview. What you need to figure out is the what and how, which is what you would answer, which is a small part, and how you would structure it basically. And the very important thing is, if you look at the emojis that we have put in, it's the notepad and the mirror. These are the two important tools in your arsenal that you should do while preparing, which is ask a question to yourself and answer it. First, prepare it, possibly using a piece of paper and a pen and with a notepad, and try to answer in front of a mirror, basically. Ask that question, write it first, then prepare the answer and answer it in front of the mirror. Do this at least 5 to 7 times before you go for your first interview or your second interview. I still practice it, and I know a lot of other people with after multiple years of experiences are still doing it basically. So there's no harm that why you shouldn't practice for that matter. Prepare answers to interview FAQs, which we've already covered. These are 5, 6 of questions that I thought are very, very important that we should possibly look at, which is introduce yourself, tell me about yourself. I think you can easily prepare it basically. Number 2, why sales? Tell us the difference between sales and marketing. What have you learned from internship? Why this company? Why this job? Basically, why? Because you're from engineering background. Why don't you want to do that? Or why only sales? And why not possibly an engineering-led job per se? There are possibly a plethora of questions, and there is a humongous amount of content which is already there on internet. Maybe as we recommend that prepare it, then sit or stand in front of a mirror, talk to yourself. That's possibly one of the best things that you can do, and try to question and try to answer. Think. I think this should help you basically in the preparation stage. Next slide, please. Yeah. I'll possibly take a pause and request Himadri if he wants to add something over here.
Yeah, just to take this point forward, what Vishal mentioned. So being in training for the last 18 years, we've always been telling people when it comes to training on presentation skills or maybe how to enhance your communication skills, stand in front of the mirror and practice. It may sound really weird at the face of it, but trust me, it's one of the most effective techniques. However, looking at the generation that we are in, it's probably got primitive. So what I can suggest to the Gen Z, and I'm sure that's the majority of the population is watching this. I remember when we would practice this, you'll have to probably go and steal your mom's, vanity mirror and then stand in front of the dressing table, so-called. But what you can do now is, I'm sure you guys are very, pro in doing your selfies and all of that. So you can just keep your phone, quickly video record it. Okay. I think that's even better, standing in front of the mirror, because when you stand in front of the mirror, you can just see it temporarily or probably for that moment. But when you video record it and when you play it, trust me, just try doing it once. The moment you play your video, you don't need a coach or a trainer or mentor to tell you what should be your facial expression. Are you going fast? Should you be speaking slow? Is your hand movements okay? Are you stiff? The moment you see your own video, 80% of the learnings will come out. You will be able to self-correct yourself and you could figure out, okay, this is how I look when I speak. And this is how people look at me. So 80% of the things you can change on your own. You can, fine tune that. So best is keep a phone, video record or whatever you've written as your introduction or whatever questions you want to answer. And I'm sure that's going to help.
Thank you, Himadri, for the Gen Z tip. Just to let you know, all of you, when at least I can remember about myself when I gave my first interview, and I'm sure for Himadri too, we come from a generation, and I'm 100% sure you would not have heard of Nokia 1100s and 2100s or Motorola's. They were feature phones, what we call today. They didn't used to have camera wherein we could record and possibly check.
I think Vishal
was possibly the best friend that we had.
I think Vishal, for these days, these models would be, a species of dinosaurs in a Jurassic Park.
Yeah. So yeah, but if you guys get chance, do check Nokia 1100, 2100, Motorola. You'll come to know what we're possibly talking about. But yeah, thank you for the Gen Z reco or the tip of the day, Himadri. Next slide, please. Yeah. Great. This is the present part, which is once you have prepared, once you have practiced, the most important part is you have come to give examination now. You have come for the war. And these are the ABCs of being present or presentability is what we think are extremely important that you should keep in mind. Number one is the attitude. Attitude is one of the very, very important thing, and it gets reflected with very, very small things that one does. Are you before time or are you late? It speaks volume. So as a fresher, please understand that we do not carry that experience. Now, what is another thing that we can possibly do? It's our attitude. And believe me, lot of questions which get asked in interview, attitude is one of the most important aspect or strength, or let's say a trait that interviews look for, be it sales, be it any other skill. That's one of the most important thing for a fresher. And even once you have multiple years of experience, attitude is one of the most important determining factor which would take you ahead too. As I said, you don't need to be on time for the interview. You need to reach before time, preferably before 15 minutes. So if the interview starts at, let's say, 7:30, reach at 7:15 p.m. If the interview is supposed to start at 9:30 a.m., reach by 9:15 a.m. Number one. Number two, mobile phone. There are a lot of interviews I can personally have interviewed people. Suddenly the phone would ring possibly. Keep it on silent or you can turn it off. It takes a second, nothing much. Documents. Do carry your resume, mark sheet, degree, or internship letter. Irrespective of the fact it is asked or not, it shows the professionalism even when you have not become the professional. I repeat it, just by carrying documents, and there is a tendency of a lot of, there are specifically at freshers round that we have seen, they may call you for interview and they may say that process may take a couple of days, but if you're a fantastic candidate, there's a very good possibility your process may get over on the same day. And if you are there, if you're around, there's no harm in carrying the documents and sharing it with the HR or let's say with the salespeople that here, though you didn't ask for documents, I'm already carrying it. You didn't ask. It shows the preparedness. It shows the professionalism. As I said, irrespective of the professional that you've become from the day zero per se. Number two is the body language, the B part of it, which is when basically you're coming for the interview, when you're entering in the interview room or possibly when you're sitting, there's no harm in smiling for a second or two, possibly. I'm not saying you need to giggle, you need to smile basically. Introduce yourself, maybe like, hi, I'm Vishal, hi, I'm this, great to meet you today. And maybe you can ask the name of the person, shake hands firmly, and then you can sit. But I think before sitting, ask that, may I sit now? Usually interviewer would ask you to sit, but if let's say after 5-7 seconds of interview not asking, there is no harm in asking the interviewer, may I sit now, possibly. During the course of interview and from the start till the time you're leaving, do maintain the eye contact basically. 3 is the commanding presence, which is the C of being the presentability. What kind of clothes they're ironed or not. They should be neat basically, preferably I would say professional clothes for men, women, depending upon what that company is asked for. Your hair basically are neat and not unkempt. Nails basically are cut. Perfume, cologne, you should have it, but it should not be too hard that basically it is difficult for the interviewer also that they are sitting. A lot of people may be allergic, if I may say, to lot kind of smells. So I think a light perfume cologne is what possibly would be our recommendation. And I think that's the end of the slide, which is ABCs of being present. And I'll ask for the tip of the slide or tip for the day again, or a Gen Z tip for Himadri. Yeah. Himadri, as you come from hotel management background also, and I cannot deny the fact that possibly one of the best, kept secret, if I may say, of people who know about being presentability. So yeah, your 1-2 pro tips over here.
So, I mean, no tips as such, but an overall, what happens is that when we go for an interview, or probably if we look at the way people groom these days, I would recommend, or there's only one suggestion, wear what you're comfortable with and wear what looks professional. Because, with this exposure to Insta and all these things, we tend to get hooked with the latest trends and the latest fashion. So I don't know whether it's going to look good on me, but when you're going for an interview, make sure that you're professionally groomed and wear something that you're comfortable to carry. That's the idea, right? Just to give you a simple tip here, I'm sure we all as human beings understand the importance of this. And a simple example would be, let's say you have a wedding in the family, immediate family, maybe your brother or sister. So, it's probably a day event, or maybe if it's a close relative, maybe 3 or 4 hours, that's all you're going to spend at the wedding. But for that, you start preparing almost about a month or 2 months back. You go to the you go to the tailor, you do your trials, you fix up everything. So as human beings, we all know the importance of grooming, and we know how important it is for all of us to look the best during that occasion. So I would suggest treat every interview as a marriage in your family. Okay. And just prepare what you want to wear that day. Basic nuances like checking one day in advance if the shirt is absolutely ironed well, there are no missing buttons, so last moment discoveries. So do that. And once you get into a practice of this, trust me, once you join the corporate, these things have to get into your DNA. It gets very embarrassing for somebody to get pulled by their boss saying that you haven't shaved today. And that will get into your DNA the moment you start doing this from day one, when you start approaching your interviews or your interview panels. So I think do that till the time it becomes a habit.
Brilliant. Thanks, Himadri. Again. Yeah, next slide, Niharika. Last one is participate. Yeah, we can go to the next slide from here. I think it's important that we just not raise hands. We also talk, basically. See, before you actually do your job of sales, interview is the forum or the venue where you should sell yourself. I think sales start from there, which is the interview day. It is your day per se. You need to showcase the ABCs of being present that we spoke about. How well do you communicate? What kind of skills and attributes do you have? So showcase that. Very, very important during the interview. Try to take notes using pen and paper. Do not use laptop. Do not use a mobile phone. Take pen and paper while taking notes. Number 3, listen very, very consciously and cautiously what exactly is the interviewer is asking you, so that you can answer it accurately. And believe me, there is absolutely no harm that if you have not understood the question, you can politely ask the interviewer to rephrase it or to repeat it for you. There's absolutely no harm. I think a lot of times we've had this question, a lot of people feel very awkward that how would I be perceived, or as a fresher, would it be right for me if I'll ask the question twice that I didn't understand? Believe me, there is nothing, or I can write it basically on a blank piece of paper, on a stamp paper, that nobody takes offense to that. Another important thing, if you do not know the answer, say so that I do not know it. Why? Because your honesty is reflective over there. Nobody is supposed to know everything. It's absolutely okay. So take a chill pill and you can easily answer that I do not know the answer, and you can say so. If you have not understood, as we have said, you can possibly ask the question again. I think the last part is in terms of showing your participation after the interview is done. Go back and analyze what went right, what can be improved, and what can I do next time, possibly. See, this is not the first interview. The post-interview that we're talking about, or all the 4P technique that we're talking, this is just not useful for your first interview. This technique would be useful for your 20th, 200th, or 2000 interview if you possibly give that many. Number 2, inform your references. Usually at fresher or even at experienced level, interviewers may ask you that, who are the people that you would want to recommend or refer, who may talk about that, how good you were in studies, what was your attitude, did you actually participate in these volunteering or extracurricular activities. After the interview, inform the references that, or the referees basically, that you may expect a call from this company where I've given an interview, possibly. So it should not be a surprise package for them. There's also no harm to follow up. Let's say once you're closing, once the interview is getting closed, basically, you can possibly check with the HR or with the interviewer that in, let's say, 48 hours or in 72 hours, you would hear about the interview round, or whether you're shortlisted or rejected, or you are possibly kept on hold. So you can always follow up possibly later. Do ask or do use the opportunity or possibly asking the question whenever it is typically asked that if you have any questions. I think that is not just your day, that is your moment to seize it, basically. As soon as you're asked that, do you have a question for us? We've already spent enough amount of time on preparation. While preparing about the company, about yourself, do talk about when it is being asked that what question do you have for us, ask about the company, ask what are they thinking for next 3 years, are there any new launches which are coming, what kind of policies do they have for freshers, how are they thinking for work-life balance, possibly. Maybe you can ask for, are there new not just services that you've actually read about in the newspaper, uh, are we going in the direction of other competitor or not, what are the products that we are possibly going to work which is also being launched by our other competitors, basically. This just does not demonstrate the question asking ability. This also demonstrates the fact that you have invested so much of time, and also the confidence that you can possibly stand up and ask questions, which, believe me, 50 to 70% people do not ask when they are put this question that, do you have any questions for us? I think that's where we possibly close our 4 Ps. Madhuri, back to you again for the pro tip.
Okay, Vishal, no tip here though. But since,
Cool.
I think the header of the slide says it's your day, right? So that's the day when you can either make it or break it, because the stakes are very high.
Yeah.
Either you get selected or it's an unfortunate day. So I think it's all about the attitude that you're going to wear up your sleeve that day.
Yep.
And I think Vishal spoke about the attitude piece at the initial stages. I think when you go and approach, and especially when you don't have any experience, people look at what raw material you have within, right? So if the attitude is great, you can, you can teach people how to perform. You can, make people productive. So in an interview, wear the best of your attitude. And I think if you've taken care of all the 4 Ps that Vishal spoke about, it should be a thumbs up on that day.
Brilliant. So that's, I think, the Gyan session predominantly. Yeah, we'll go on to the next slide, Niharika. Great. I think that's a surprise, basically, that we've been talking. So all the people who have stayed with us till this time, you'll be basically getting a certificate. We'll share it in the comment section of this YouTube live, wherein you can click this link and share your details, and the certificate of appreciation would be shared with the Juno School. And or otherwise, you can even share or drop a note to us on hi@junoschool.org. We will be also sharing all these details in the comment section, and otherwise in the webinar, basically. There's another big surprise, which is after 2 minutes, we'll be talking. So yeah, just 2 to 4 minutes more. Niharika, next slide, please. Yeah. So that's about the big surprise that we're going to get. And this is a course that we are talking in the sales, wherein there are a lot of live sessions with the trainers like Himadri that we have. So he's our ace masterclass trainer, if I may say, who possibly is teaching folks from different background about how they can ace sales, basically specifically for freshers. These are all predominantly self-paced learning modules. There are a lot of industry interface with, let's say, vice president of a lot of, let's say, technology firms, banks, pharma companies that we actually get because of our connects with IIMjobs or Naukri.com. I think we've already shared we are funded by Naukri.com, and our founder actually started IIMjobs and HireIsBo. So there's a lot of employability connect network that we actually have, which is what we are leveraging with this industry approach led program that we have launched. A lot of mock calls, interview assignments, group activities, one-on-one coaching calls. There's an internship navigation support also that we do, and a lifetime access and complete access to Juno Learning Library. Next slide. So here's a big surprise for all of you. You're eligible for a 50% scholarship, basically. You just need to drop an email for, there would be a test also that we'll be conducting. And if you clear that assessment stroke test, there's a 50% scholarship that you can get for the course. So this course is for 10K, and we'll, as we said, if you clear the test or assessment, around 50% scholarship, which will be given to you. You can drop an email to us on Hi Juno School with subject line I was there, and we'll get the idea that you were actually there, and we'll take the test for you. And so that's a big surprise that we'll be talking about it. So yeah, next slide. So yeah, all the best. And I think for the next phase of career or the start of the career that you all would be having, I'm presuming these are all freshers person who join, or maybe people who are experienced too, for the next and the current phase of the career that you are in. Do follow us on LinkedIn. That's our LinkedIn page link. That would be great. And do share any kind of comments, feedback, regrets basically about this session. I'll also hand over to Himadri over here for his pro tips. Basically, Himadri, there's a course and all kind of course content. Himadri has worked very hard on it. So yeah, I'll possibly let him also add his pro tips and thoughts.
So, no tips as such, Vishal here, but then yes, we want to stress on a couple of things. In trainings, most of the times what we do is we share more of theoretical concepts, which in the real life scenario, be it, when you're actually selling in the marketplace, it gets very difficult to implement those concepts. So when we were designing this course, one thing that we kept in mind is that we designed it in such a way that you'll find the ingredients really practical in nature, with real life insights and examples. We've used certain processes and frameworks which are very easy to understand, one. Second, and it is very simple to implement in real life. So the idea behind this course was not to develop too many scientific concepts or give you heavy doses of theoretical stuff, but yes, give you small bits and pieces of processes and frameworks which are easy to remember and you can implement them. And this course is also an amalgamation of a lot of field visits wherein you go and exactly see how people sell currently, because there's a huge improvement that we can do in terms of the way we sell. As Vishal mentioned initially, it's all about selling solutions, but still today most of the people are selling products. So learning about the theoretical concepts and vis-a-vis what's happening in the marketplace is two different worlds altogether. So this course will actually give you a lot of practical learning, and which is very simple to understand and easy to use. So that is what we kept in mind while we were designing this course. And I'm sure people who want to start a sales career or who've been into sales 4 years, 5 years, 6 years would want to come back and see what is simple to understand and easy to implement. That's been the mantra that we followed while we were designing this course.
Great. I think, Niharika, we'll take a pause over here before the next segment or questions or thoughts.
Yeah. We've overshot the time, but we have time for one question that someone has asked. So Indraneel asked that how will I get a certificate for this webinar? So if you can help him out.
Yeah. So what we'll do is, Indraneel, in the comment section or in the YouTube only, there would be a link that we would be providing with this your certificate, etc. So you can click on the link, fill your details, and you'll be getting the certificate. Niharika, I think that we can do, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have any more questions at the moment.
Okay.
So we can close the session, but also like we would be having another session soon. So whoever is attending can sort of keep a lookout for that.
Okay.
And thank you so much. Okay, so we have a positive comment. Vivek says thank you for organizing the session. It was quite useful. So thank you so much, Himadri. Thank you so much, Vishal, for coming on board and sharing your insights. Let's look forward to the next session as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone.
Niharika.
Thank you, Niharika.
Yeah.
Yes. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.